life happens to you. You feel like you have this path, but something happens to you which opens your mind to other possibilities.
My main goal was to kind of go to PA school. I wanted to study ortho. That was my kind of future timeline that I had set in stone for myself.
The brain is the biggest consumer of oxygen anyways. When there's any type of injury, there's any type of inflammation, if we can drive oxygen up there, it can take that oxygen to create energy to start to heal.
Being able to see there's more than just medication. There's more alternatives that we have that not that many people know of. And there's so much more we can build from. Being able to see how well my brain was able to kind of recover from such a traumatic injury. Being able to recover so fast from such a traumatic injury was just really amazing to see.
You really need to train your brain, number one, in a good way, and number two, consistently. What I learned in school, motor control or anything to that effect is repetition and good reps. Welcome to the HealthFit Huddle, where we keep you mobile and active away from painkillers and surgery so you can get back to the activities that you love. My name is Dr. Jason Hahn, CEO and co-founder of HealthFit Physical Therapy and Chiropractic. I'm excited today to introduce to you Mateo Fernandez. He is a brain trainer and QEEG technician over at Vital Brain Health, also located in Pasadena. They have an amazing group. I've known their founder, Dr. Licata, for a long time now at this point, and they've done really amazing things, a lot of amazing healing, and I'm honored to have someone that works really, really closely with Dr. Licata and the organization on board to talk everything brain related. So welcome to the Huddle, man.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hahn. I'm excited to be here. I'm glad to share my story and see where we can go from here.
Awesome. So let's get down to it. Why don't you give our audience a little bit of background on you and how you got started over at Vital?
Yeah, of course. So I've been working for Vital for about two years now. I started working at Vital. My stepdad was actually a patient of Dr. Giancarlo Licata's. During that time, I was looking for a new position, a new job in that specific field, and kind of was perfect timing. My stepdad was just finishing his his first round of neurofeedback training. I kind of got my foot into the door with Dr. Licata, built a relationship with him. Went for a couple months during an interview process, and then I'm part of this wonderful team. So it's been great.
That's great. That's awesome. Because I know him quite well, and he's very, very picky about who he brings into the organization. If you could go back even a little bit farther, like where did you go to college? What did you study?
Yeah, of course.
Was it in line with brain training?
Yeah, so I went to the University of Oregon, go Ducks, obviously. I studied human physiology. I was pre-physician's assistant. My main goal was to kind of go to PA school. I wanted to study ortho. That was my kind of future timeline that I had set in stone for myself. Before I graduated college, I actually went through a traumatic brain injury. So I actually had a small brain bleed that happened about 2018. So ever since then, it's seeing myself recover and seeing how well the brain is able to adapt kind of sparked a new plug for me. Opened a whole new avenue that I wanted to kind of pursue and wanted to look forward into. So my stars just kind of aligned, and now I'm doing neurofeedback therapy. So it's amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting how. Well, it's not interesting. That's what happens. Life happens to you. You feel like you have this path, but something happens to you which opens your mind to other possibilities. And with that experience with you said your stepdad that went to Vital and you saw it, what was it about neurofeedback and Vital Brain Health that piqued your interest?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So specifically for my stepdad, his main goal for going into training was to kind of enhance his performance, specifically his focus. He was CEO for a company. He wanted to be able to handle more, be able to have more margin to take on more responsibility, have the ability to prolong his kind of day, being able to have that sustainable energy throughout his 7 days a week. It's just a constant, never-ending kind of strategy he wanted to work on. For me personally, I wanted to pursue neurofeedback because hearing so many like recovery stories for people with post TBIs, ADHD, dysregulation, focus, it just kind of like struck me. Being able to see there's more than just medication. There's more alternatives that we have that not that many people know of, and there's so much more we can build from.
Right.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind sharing, you talked a bit about your TBI.
Yeah.
Tell as much as you would like,
Yeah,
but like what happened and basically what happened and then that journey to where you are now.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, my TBI was 2018 of December. From there, I had a subdural and subarachnoid hematoma. I was in the hospital for over 2.5 weeks. That recovery process was something I don't remember. It was kind of hard. It was kind of long. But being able to see where I'm at today, being able to see how well my brain was able to kind of recover from such a traumatic injury. Obviously, from then, my age did help. I was only 18 years old. So being able to recover so fast from such a traumatic injury was just really amazing to see.
Yeah. I think you know my story of my mother-in-law and how I was introduced to brain training, and she suffered a TBI about 4 years ago. So I have a connection to it all. And how did it, when you were having these symptoms?
Yeah.
You're young, you're healthy. What kind of symptoms were you having? And how did that make you feel? You're an 18-year-old kid at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Like supposed to be active, supposed to be sharp. What kind of symptoms did you have, and how did that make you feel?
Yeah, so the biggest symptoms that kind of still stayed for almost a couple years later was my sense of smell. My olfactory bulb was damaged, so I didn't have those certain receptors to be able to smell anything. Brain fatigued, just exhaustion. Mainly, I mean, there was just so many little things that kind of just like domino effect. There was always one thing after another. Like, I thought something would be over. Then there was brain fog that was just constant. There was just brain fatigue that I just couldn't get over. Being able to kind of see where those, I would say those symptoms started to either prolong or get better was kind of hard to kind of distinguish from that time. There would be moments where I would have good days. It's like there's always those on and off days. Some days would be better than others. Some days would be harder than others. So it was really hard to kind of see what was the sustainable progress that I had or didn't have.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've worked a lot in athletics. So in soccer, you're heading the ball a lot, and there's head-to-head contact.
Yeah.
I worked in American football for a while, a lot of contact. I worked in martial arts, a lot of contact. And I think that those are some of the things that they go underneath the radar, and people just feel like, oh, it's just normal. And I think it's important for someone like you that's young and healthy to share that story, because when someone listens to it, it's, I wonder if those two big hits or that car accident a few years ago did something to me. And it's always important to look at. So let's get into neurofeedback a little bit.
Of course.
For those that don't know what neurofeedback, what is it? How does it work?
Yeah, so great question. So what neurofeedback is, it's great. I love explaining what neurofeedback is, because anytime I tell people like, oh, like, what do you do? I said, I'm a neurofeedback. I do neurofeedback for my work. They look at me and they go, what is that? So the best way to kind of explain it, so it's kind of like more of a positive feedback loop. So what it is, we'll be rewarding and inhibiting specific locations and frequencies that are kind of designed to your specific initial brain map that we see. From there, like I said, we'll train different locations, whether that's playing a car game, a flying game, a driving game, or even watching Netflix or Disney Plus. What I mean by that is specifically when there's an electrode that's placed on a specific location on your scalp, we'll be training those specific and desired frequencies. When our brain falls into those desired frequencies that we're trying to teach and trying to learn, that game you are playing will begin to, say the driving game, will begin to drive as accurate and fast as possible through each maze and each track we're trying to navigate through. If our brain's not falling into that desired frequency, that car that we're quote unquote controlling will intentionally crash. Will begin to slow down or crash into something. That's more of that negative response that we're trying to teach your brain not to fall into. So while everyone comes through their training sessions 2 to 3 times a week, they're receiving about 8 to almost 1,000 different positive feedback loops within their session. So whether if that's playing that driving game, that flying game, or even just sitting there and watching Netflix or Disney Plus.
Interesting. What kind of conditions are you primarily seeing nowadays at the office?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say there is a kind of a wide spectrum that we kind of see in our office, whether if that's emotional dysregulation for kids or even adults, ADHD, focus, as well as performance, anxiety, depression, and then post-TBIs. We've had a lot of patients coming in post-stroke, being able to kind of have that more regulation from their day-to-day after their post-injury.
Mm-hmm. I remember early on when I was talking with Dr. Licata, and it was primarily like an older population, and it was like dementia and even as they're older, like ADHD, like those type of things. Like he has his story, right?
Yeah,
he has
exactly.
his own personal story. And then I remember there was a time where it was 1 or 2 years after COVID when people started to come out and stuff like that, where he started to see a lot more kids. And can you speak a little bit to that? Like all the kids that are coming into your facility that are having trouble focusing at school, and then let's say they may be giving them meds or just writing them off. Like what kinds of things are you seeing?
Yeah. So a lot of our kiddos that we see in our office, I mean, the youngest one have seen recently was about 4 years old.
Wow.
And then you can say the oldest would be almost 18. So there's a big kind of demographic of ages. So it's not just for teens or preteens, it's for all ages. So this past quarter in this season of life, there's been a lot of kiddos coming in, specifically their initial consult will be for, I have ADHD, I have kind of that dysregulation and focus, but there's always a need behind that need. So they can come in for ADHD, but the real thing is their impulse control, their lack of ability to have an emotional regulation. All these little kind of setbacks that we see are the reason why they're having these issues with their focus at school, being able to sit still during class, being able to retain that information that they're trying to receive, but they're just not present. So right now we're just getting over the summer. So this is the prime time when a lot of kiddos actually do come in. So being able to come in before summer school or before summer camp, it's a great time to kind of train your brain before the new season starts, before that new semester and that new year we're going into.
That's pretty incredible. Like I said, I'm a parent. I have 2 young kids, and to fortunately, it seems my kids are okay, but I could see, some parents or some kids that may have these issues. And it's important to know that you don't always have to rely on medications. Yes, in some cases they are warranted or in combination, but there's something that you can actively do. And that's very, very important for me. Like, obviously we're physical therapy, chiropractic, and yes, for us, we can put our hands and make you feel better, but there's also an active portion to the healing process. And I remember my first brain map a few years back, and it was similar to your stepdad, like what I was looking for. I have 10 million things on my plate.
Exactly.
I'm trying to stay focused. And what I found myself was, and I feel like I'm a high performer, but I would lose my focus on a task. And for me, like, I need to be focused for like an hour or 2 hours on a task at time, and then not let this thing distract me. So I think we're all in that space now, because we all have our phones, and I think the attention span is like 2.5 seconds or whatever it is. So in a lot of ways, we have to train ourselves to do that. And I don't want to quote him, but he saw my brain map and he was like, look, these spark plugs are like they're overgoing. Like you have too much activity here and you don't have enough activity here. So if he made the analogy to like my body, if one muscle's overactive and one's not active enough, what's going to happen? I'm going to have an orthopedic problem. Similar thing in your brain. If there's overactivity here and then not enough activity here, you're going to have some type of dysregulation. So me being in this side of the field, that made sense to me. So, I think it's really, really interesting what you guys do, and it's quite powerful. You've been coming here using like our hyperbaric chambers and stuff like that. We've had some clients that have done both. What have you seen a benefit, at least from yourself, and then what have you seen in some of the clients that have at least used both services, modalities?
So I would say the biggest part for me, since I've been doing hyperbaric oxygen as well as neurofeedback kind of hand in hand with each other, like I mentioned before, I lost my sense of smell from my previous TBI. When I did about 3 months, I think it was it was just shy about 3 months of hyperbaric and neurofeedback, I started to get my smell back, which kind of threw me away because I was like, oh my gosh, I can now smell what everything is.
Right.
So it was a really big eye opener. Just being able to have more perfusion during neurofeedback and being able to get more oxygen in those specific areas was just amazing. That's just my side of the story, because I went 6 years or 5 to 6 years just not being able to smell, and then slowly getting that recovery back and having that like sense of, wow, that's what fresh air is again.
Wow.
It was just amazing to have that kind of just that second sense again. So it was amazing for me, and it was great. I'm still continuing doing HBOT. I'm still continuing doing neurofeedback. But that wasn't my main focus. I wasn't trying to, my number one goal, I need my smell back. It was just another avenue was open, just being able to get more blood flow in that area and just getting more oxygen just opened a whole new avenue that I wasn't expecting, which was amazing.
Right. It's crazy how it works.
Yeah.
And then again, like my story is my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
We had hyperbaric first for her. She had a TBI, she had a brain bleed, she had neurological like symptoms, and she was doing physical therapy and chiropractic, but that was moving quite slowly. We needed something to boost it from the inside out, and that's when we got introduced to hyperbaric. Once we did that, she did very, very well. Yeah. And over time, then we started to see like these fine details that they weren't improving. That's when I went back to Licata and I was like, is she inappropriate at this time? Let's do a brain map. Let's see. And then he could tell from the brain map what was going on with her without even really talking to me. And it just shows that's what the brain does. It controls certain things. So I look at it as the hyperbaric adds oxygen. The brain is the biggest consumer of oxygen anyways. So when there's any type of injury, there's any type of inflammation, if we can drive oxygen up there, it can take that oxygen to create energy to start to heal. I think it also starts a layer for, or like the beginning stages of neuroplasticity, where the brain training comes in. It's like essentially the exercise for the brain for you to get those ultimate gains. So I think it's quite, I'm just speaking from personal experience, like from my mother-in-law and stuff like that. Whether or not they were using hyperbaric and neurofeedback, or even just neurofeedback, is there anyone that stands out to you where you're like, wow, this is why I love what I do? Is there a specific person that you can think of?
Yeah, I would say when I first started working, I think it was my first 6 months working at Vital Brain Health. We had this patient of ours that she struggled with her day-to-day, just being able to kind of take on the day. Her anxiety was just so high. It was just really debilitating. Waking up and not wanting to kind of go through it, not wanting to go through the motions, not excited to have those emotions and express those emotions. After she finished her first round, it was honestly so rewarding for me, and it made me appreciate what we do. Being able to see her come in with a whole different attitude, seeing her whole just demeanor. She comes in with a smile on her face, is willing to talk, have conversation. And it's just to see from like night and day from the moment she first came in and to where she's at now, it's just so rewarding on our end as well as for them. Being able to change people's lives, to see them want to take on another day, want to do more in life. It's just amazing. Yeah.
It's, since meeting Dr. Licata and having exposure to this, obviously most people come here and they feel like it's for back pain, shoulder pain, something to that effect. And what we end up doing over time, once we get to know our clients, we get to kind of know their lives.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of things behind the scenes which may be contributing to their current pain. And like you said, there is emotional dysregulation. There is maybe depression or some past events that have potentially affected them in a negative way. And I think that's important for other professions, whether they're medical or not. It's just to have awareness that we're not just dealing with one thing. We're dealing with a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it's great to have you and Annalisa and Lakata as incredible resources for us. So for someone first time to Vital, like what does that experience look like from like what the brain map is, and like how do you guys move forward with that?
Yeah, so what it looks like, having that initial brain map, we'll come in, we'll start with an attention assessment first. So we'll see how well your brain kind of sprint, I like to say. It's a 20-minute test, so we're testing your auditory and visual attention, just to see how well you can kind of run through these motions. It's a very boring test, but also very insightful to have. From there, we'll move on to the initial brain map itself. That process is about 45 to an hour. What it looks like, you'll come in, we'll kind of prep your scalp, prep your hair, put a little bit of a conductive pace in each one of the electrodes. I always like to tell kiddos when they come in so they're not too kind of scared about it, because getting a brain map done, you're like, what in the world does that mean? I always like to say the electrodes that are placed around the cap are like little microphones. These microphones are just recording the electrical activity to see what areas are either overfiring, underfiring, or not firing at all. From there, we'll do 2 different recordings, one with our eyes closed and one with our eyes open. Those both recordings will be about 10 minutes long. And then from there, once the whole recording process is done, the attention assessment is over, we'll schedule the initial brain map review. That will be with Dr. Lakata. We'll kind of go through and see, like I said, what areas are causing this dysregulation, this lack of anxiety, or this anxiety, lack of focus, or whatever your overall goal is. We can see those in those specific areas of your brain map. During that review, Dr. Lakata will be super transparent. We want to be able to best support you as best we can, whether if that's coming into our office, doing neurofeedback training, or referring you out to another practice or practitioner. Our overall goal is to guide you in the direction that would be best for you.
You guys just recently rolled out remote training.
We did.
Yeah.
Yes.
How's that?
Remote training's been great. So now we have clients all throughout the U.S. We have a couple in Turkey, Finland, Lisbon, as well as London.
Wow.
So being able to kind of facilitate, support, and guide all these new clients internationally has been phenomenal. Even though there is a time difference,
Right.
We're doing it great, and it's really awesome.
Yeah, I think it's you have options.
We have options,
And if people aren't in Pasadena, they can still reach out and they can still get help. And I think it's not a lot of places have access to this. So I think it's important for people to know that. I know it ranges with people, and it depends on condition and the severity. But how long does it typically take for someone, and you can use a specific example if you would like, for someone to get better, and what would they expect along this journey? Let's say it's ADHD or something to that effect. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I would start off first. We would kind of look at the severity of their case specifically. If I would say, let me start with this. On average, for kiddos or adults that their main focus is ADHD in focus, if they're waiting to see what that first shift looks like, whether if that's being able to have more margin in their day, being able to sit down and retain more information or sit there. On average, we'll see our clients take about 10 to 15 sessions of neurofeedback training to start to see that first shift, whether if that's for ADHD, focus, anxiety, whatever that goal is. During our training process, we have one full round consists of 40 neurofeedback sessions. In order for those shifts to kind of be long lasting and stick, it has to be about 40 sessions. So after they finish that first round, they'll be able to see those noticeable shifts within their overall goal. We always like to say, whatever clients we do take on, we plan to see a 30 to 50% shift in that overall goal.
Wow. It makes sense. There has to be consistency. It's like, again, I'm in this field, so it's like exercise.
Exactly.
It's like exercise. If you do it once every 2 weeks or once a week, you're not going to get stronger. You're not going to lose weight. You're not going to get the gains that you want. And something as important as cognitive function, you really need to train your brain, number one, in a good way, and appropriately, and number 2, consistently. And what I learned in school, motor control or anything to that effect, is repetition and good reps. And it makes sense why you guys have structured the way that you guys have, and that's why you guys have such good results. Is because you make it a point that if you want to get better, this is what you need to do. If you want to just do a quarter of it, you may not get the results that you want.
Exactly.
But like you said, Dr. Licata is very, very straightforward. You guys are straightforward with what you guys do and the benefits, and you have a lot of experience doing so. So I've always really appreciated that about you guys, because it's all about results. At the end of the day, you're trying to change lives. What would you say to someone that, let's say they have no idea what brain training is, neurofeedback, and what kind of symptoms would they be looking for? It's hard to say, but would they let's say kids, and difficulty focusing at school or emotional dysregulation, what should parents be looking for in those situations to have a light bulb go off, where like, hey, maybe I should look into this brain training stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if we're kind of tailoring it just to ADHD and focus, for parents, I would kind of focus on their impulse control. A lot of people don't really realize that a lot of their impulse control can be the lack of their focus and that ADHD ability that they're kind of obtaining. So during at school, being able to sit at class, being able to, being able to sit at school and being able to work at home, having that impulse control to be like, oh, let me go on my phone. Oh, let me watch TV. Oh, like if I pretend to do this in 5 seconds, oh, I can do something else. Those little kind of movements and those kind of movements are more noticeable to see within ADHD and focus. Like, I mean, ADHD and focus is such a wide spectrum that there can be so much underneath that umbrella.
Yeah.
There's every kiddo is a little bit different, so it's kind of tailored to what their parents see from their day to day. When we have kiddos come in and their main goal is ADHD and focus, we want to kind of dig deeper into that. Like, what do you see for that ADHD focus? Is it just not being able to pay attention? Is it being able to sit still? There's so many moving parts within it that it's so different for each individual. So once we get that initial brain map, we'll have them fill out initial intake as well too. So we can kind of see what's deeper behind that overall goal.
Right.
Like if it's ADHD and focus, like what's can be causing ADHD and focus? So like obviously there's so many different things that can be seen for every individual. That's why we're all different. So for kiddos specifically, for parents, I think the biggest aspect for that ADHD and focus is being able to see how they respond to their day to day. How does it look? How is their emotional ability at school, and how is it at home? What can you see it's different, and what can you improve, and what would you want to improve as well?
Yeah, I as a parent, one of my big takeaways from that was, in a lot of ways, it's a crutch. Like when the kid is like, oh, is always on the iPad and like just can't focus on school, and it's like, it is what it is. But I'm not cut of that cloth. I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way. And you can blame phones all you want. Yeah. But that's an excuse. And if there's something you can actually do, like let's say there's a behavior in my child that I'm like, man, I'm trying my best, I'm kind of stuck. There are potential answers out there. That's how I kind of look at this. It's rather gray. Yeah. Like it's very, very complex in a sense, but yeah, it doesn't have to be this way. So Mateo, we talked a little bit about the kids and ADHD. How about older individuals, dementia, cognitive decline? What kinds of things are you seeing there? And is there hope for someone that's suffering from those kinds of things?
Yeah. So in our office right now, we have, I would say, about a full handful clients that are coming in for the prevention of cognitive decline or dementia. There's also a kind of, I would say, kind of a slope that we see for cognitive decline. When things start progressively getting worse, that decline will progressively get faster. So our biggest goal while they're here at Vital is to kind of decrease the actual slope of that decline. So being able to kind of mediate it and kind of slow it down is our overall goal. Cognitive decline and dementia, it's not something you can fully get rid of, but we can slowly prevent in a sense. In our office, those clients that we do have that have the cognitive decline, that have that pre-dementia or creeping into dementia, what we can do is best support. Us supporting them is being able to decrease the kind of amplitude of how fast they're kind of moving through that. A lot of things can happen. There's a lot of different variables that can increase that. Being sick, lack of sleep, lack of nutrition. There's just so many moving parts that can make that decline faster and faster. And the biggest thing that we can do and best support is to decrease that speed of that decline.
Right. I think it's important. It's my parents are in their 80s, both sides, and I'm all about stories. So my father, it was maybe a few months back, he was having these issues as far as remembering things, and my mom tells me, and like he has a Post-it note here and there about reminding him to close the door or the garage. And yes, cognitive decline is a normal part of aging in a sense, and it goes at different rates for different people.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you can either look at it two ways. And I'm always about doing something for yourself if you can. You can either say, "Oh, I'm just getting old." And that's part of it, don't get me wrong. But part of it is you can do something about it.
Take an action.
Yeah. And when I've been pushing my dad to try to go to Vital, and he just needs to get over that hump. But at least I got him into hyperbarics, and he's done quite well. And I think regardless of the profession or the service or the expertise, everyone's at a different crux in their life. And it's important for each individual to assess where they are truly, and to really just take a hard look. And the more passive that you are, I feel life passes you by in a sense. And then when I was talking to my dad about this, just actually this past weekend, he was complaining about more the physical things. And he goes, "Oh, I'm getting older." And I said to him, "Why are you complaining?" So "I'm not complaining. I'm just getting older." And I said, "Look, Dad, tough love. You know what?" I go, "When I was an athlete, or when I was in school, when I was having a hard time, what did you tell me?" He kind of looks at me. And I said, "You told me, stop complaining, do something about it." And I think this is why the huddles are so important, is to give people a perspective of you can do something about your life, especially when things are not as good as you would want them to be. There is an option for most things, and to have the confidence, to have the fortitude, to have just the courage to recognize that you need help somewhere. And whether it's coming to HealthFit or going to Vital, our job is to figure out what is best for you. And like you said, if you guys do a map and a Licata looks at it, I'm like, this is maybe not something that we can address. I know him, I know you guys are always going to find an option. Same thing for us. Someone calls with a specific diagnosis that's just outside of our scope. Give us a moment. Let us call you back. Let's figure out who may be a good fit for you. So I appreciate you. I appreciate Annalisa. I appreciate Dr. Licata and everything that you've done, not only for my own family, but our patients. And I appreciate this relationship so much. As far as anyone that wants to get a hold of Vital or wants to find out more, like what's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, best place to go, I would go on our Instagram. It's Vital Brain Health, as well as our website. It's super accessible, being able to find our contact number, our email, as well as our social media. We're open to any kind of form of DMs or calls. So whatever is easiest for you guys is always the best. We're always on our Instagram and social media, and our phone, we're always there.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you for coming.
Of course.
And yeah, stay tuned for our next HealthFit Huddle where we will introduce another special person. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Hey, if you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification for our latest tips coming to you every week. Share this video with your family and friends. It might just make their day a little bit better. I'll see you soon.